Hello and a very warm welcome to today's session brought to you by Team Testbook Super Coaching. आज की इस पर्टिकुलर क्लास के माध्यम से हम 15 क्विक रिवीजन क्वेश्चंस को कवर करेंगे. We will be reviewing अच्छी तरीके से प्रॉपर कॉन्सेप्ट्स. मैं साथ ही साथ में एक वीडियो भी आप लोगों के लिए लेके आऊंगी जिसमें I'll tell you कि कैसे प्रीवियस ईयर्स क्वेश्चंस जो हम रेगुलरली वाईटी पे एज वेल एज मास्टर क्लासेस में कवर करते हैं उनका बेस्ट ऑप्टिमम यूसेज आप कैसे कर सकते हैं ताकि आपको और भी ज्यादा हेल्प मिले जब आप अपने टाइम को इन्वेस्ट करते हैं इस तरह के क्वेश्चन बैंक्स को कवर करने के लिए. आज हम लोग 15 क्विक रिवीजन क्वेश्चंस करेंगे. हम लोगों ने जो आपकी संडे की मास्टर क्लास हुई थी, जो आपकी संडे की मास्टर क्लास थी, दैट मींस 18 फरवरी को जो आपकी मास्टर क्लास हुई थी उसका लिंक मैंने टेलीग्राम प्लेटफॉर्म पे भी शेयर किया था. उसके अंदर हम लोगों ने क्वेश्चंस 1 to 25 को कवर किया था और फाउंडेशन बैच के अंदर जो आपका नेक्स्ट फाउंडेशन बैच की क्लास होगी उसमें हम क्वेश्चन नंबर 26 to 37 को सॉल्व करेंगे बिकॉज ये सारे के सारे क्वेश्चंस 26 to 37 इंडियन इंग्लिश लिटरेचर से एसोसिएटेड हैं जो कि हम लोग आजकल फाउंडेशन बैच की क्लास में कर रहे हैं अप अंटिल मंडे जब आपका सेक्शनल टेस्ट होगा इंडियन इंग्लिश राइटिंग्स के ऊपर, इंडियन लिटरेचर के ऊपर. तो यहाँ पर आपको जो एक चीज ध्यान में रखनी है, यहाँ पर एक चीज जो आपको याद में रखनी है वो ये है कि ऑफकोर्स ये जो क्वेश्चन है क्वेश्चन नंबर 26 to 37 ये हम लोग विल बी कवरिंग इट ड्यूरिंग द फाउंडेशन बैच व्हेन वी मीट नेक्स्ट ऑल टुगेदर. और आज हम क्वेश्चन नंबर 38 से क्विक 15 क्वेश्चंस करेंगे जिसमें से 13 क्वेश्चंस हम अभी करेंगे और 2 क्वेश्चंस मैं आपको टेलीग्राम के ऊपर दूंगी ताकि आप उनको एज अ होमवर्क सॉल्व कर सके. ठीक है, तो देरी नहीं करते हुए फटाफट से स्टार्ट करते हैं. लाइक आई टोल्ड यू कि एक आपकी वीडियो पहले से ही आ गई है, ये आपको वीडियो के कॉलम में दिख जाएगा दैट हाउ कैन यू एक्चुअली कवर प्रीवियस क्वेश्चंस को कवर करने की व्हाट इज द बेस्ट स्ट्रेटजी. ठीक है, तो लेट्स क्विकली गेट स्टार्टेड. देरी नहीं करते हुए जल्दी से स्टार्ट करते हैं. ये आपका फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन है. यू कैन एक्चुअली पुट इट इन द कमेंट सेक्शन कि क्या आपको लगता है व्हाट इज द राइट आंसर. व्हिच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग नाइजीरियन नॉवेल्स रिवॉल्व्स अराउंड अ स्पिरिट चाइल्ड हु कैन मूव बैक एंड फोर्थ बिटवीन द ह्यूमन एंड द स्पिरिट वर्ल्ड. हम लोगों ने ये क्वेश्चन डिस्कस भी कर रखा है. बुकर अवार्ड विनिंग बुक्स आपके लिए काफी ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट होते हैं. रादर हम एक सीरीज भी स्टार्ट करेंगे जिसमें विल ट्राई टू मेक श्योर दैट यू नो ऑल ऑफ यू आर गेटिंग प्रॉपर एग्जॉस्टिव कवरेज ऑफ ऑल योर बुकर अवार्ड विनिंग बुक्स. राइट, जो आपकी सारी की सारी बुकर अवार्ड विनिंग बुक्स हैं ये सब ऑफ कोर्स आपके लिए काफी इंपॉर्टेंट हो जाती हैं. एंड व्हेन वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट नाइजीरियन राइटर्स एज इट इज नाइजीरियन राइटर कैटेगरी इंपॉर्टेंट है, बुकर अवार्ड विनिंग बुक्स इंपॉर्टेंट है. और यहाँ पर आप क्या देख पा रहे हो, अगर आप एलिमिनेट भी करते हैं नाइजीरियन लिखा हुआ है तो एलन पेटॉन आपको पता होना चाहिए कि कहाँ से आ रहे हैं. हम लोगों ने साउथ अफ्रीकन लिटरेचर को कवर करते हुए फाउंडेशन बैच में भी ये डिस्कस किया था. Chinua Achebe is Nigerian of course, but he's not writing such a kind of a novel. ये बेन ओक्री का वर्क है. राइट, ये कौन सा वर्क है? दिस इज अ वर्क, दिस इज अ नॉवल व्हिच इज कमिंग फ्रॉम द पेन ऑफ बेन ओक्री. फैमिश रोड जिसको बुकर प्राइज भी मिला था. अभी मैं आपको इसका एक्सप्लेनेशन भी दिखाने वाली हूँ. सो हियर वी आर एबल टू सी बेन ओक्रीज द फैमिश रोड. बाकी भी बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट वर्क्स हैं, उनको भी आप पोस्ट कॉलोनियल पर्सपेक्टिव से जरूर एनालाइज कीजिएगा. ओके, सो हियर वी कम ऑन, हियर वी गो ऑन. तो आप यहाँ पर यू आर एबल टू सी दैट आपका जो फैमिश रोड है, फैमिश रोड इज द राइट आंसर. सो फैमिश रोड 1991 में नाइजीरियन राइटर बेन ओक्री लिख रहे हैं. दिस वाज एक्चुअली अ पार्ट ऑफ अ ट्रिलॉजी में और कौन कौन से पार्ट्स थे? सॉन्ग ऑफ एन्चेंटमेंट एंड इन्फिनिट रिचेस. सॉन्ग ऑफ एन्चेंटमेंट एंड इन्फिनिट रिचेस. आई होप आप लोगों को क्लियर है. मैंने बताया 1 to 25 हम लोगों ने मास्टर क्लास में कवर किया था जो आपकी 18 फरवरी 2024 को हुई थी. 26 क्वेश्चन से लेके 37 क्वेश्चन तक ये हम फाउंडेशन बैच में कवर करेंगे. इंडियन इंग्लिश राइटिंग से वो एसोसिएटेड है. और 38 ऑनवर्ड्स अभी हम लोग देख रहे हैं. 13 क्वेश्चंस मैं अभी आपको दूंगी और 2 आपके होमवर्क क्वेश्चंस हो जाएंगे. ठीक है ना. ये जो नॉवल है अजारो, अजारो से स्पिरिट चाइल्ड, अजारो से स्पिरिट चाइल्ड. जैसे कई बार आप देखते हो कि चाइल्ड बर्थ के टाइम पे देयर इज अ स्टिल बॉर्न चाइल्ड, दैट इज एन अजारो, क्योंकि वो चाइल्ड वापस आ जाता है. बट दिस अजारो डजंट वांट्स टू कम बैक. This Azaro wants to stay over there and change the situation of his parents. ठीक है, so Azaro is pressured into leaving the mortal world in the favor of the spirit world altogether. लेकिन ये कह रहा है नहीं, मैं अर्थ पे रहना चाहता हूँ, मैं अर्थ पे रहना चाहता हूँ, क्योंकि ऑब्वियसली ट्रेडिशनल सोसाइटीज, ट्रेडिशनल नॉर्म्स आपके दिखाए जाते हैं तो ऐसा बिलीफ होता है. ये अजारो कहता है आई डोंट वांट टू कम बैक टू द स्पिरिट वर्ल्ड, आई वांट टू स्टे ओवर हियर, आई वांट टू बी ओवर हियर, आई वांट टू चेंज द लाइफ my parents, right? So Azaro ka, that is what you are basically able to see, overall. तो ये जो अजारो का spirit sort of interaction है, traditional values हैं, ये आपको यहाँ पर दिखाए जाते हैं. So please keep that in mind. In fact, on one occasion, he woke up in a coffin after his parents thought the son has died. ओके तो ये प्लीज इसको थोड़ा सा याद रखिएगा. दे आर मूविंग बैक एंड फोर्थ फ्रॉम द स्पिरिट एंड द रियल वर्ल्ड ऑल टुगेदर. 1991 बुक प्राइज है. ओके सो हियर Ben Okri is the right answer. Moving on to the second question for today. Who kills the religious, frantic and violent patriarch of the Achiki family in Adichie's Purple Hibiscus? ये भी एक बहुत ही important post colonial writing का work है. When we are looking at Purple Hibiscus by Adichie के बाकी works भी बहुत ज्यादा important है. And here you have to remember, even Adichie is a Nigerian writer. Adichie is also a Nigerian writer. So Ben Okri, Chinua Achebe, Woshwinka, all these are your Nigerian pantheon of writers जो post colonial perspective से बहुत ज्यादा important है, right? तो Purple Hibiscus again extremely important. Central character कौन है? Kambili. Kambili is the central character that you are having, a teenager that you're able to look at. So यहाँ पर what is the correct answer before we look at the explanation? So who kills the religious, the frantic? This is the wife Beatrice. The wife Beatrice. कम्बली के perspective से पूरी की पूरी story आपको एक तरह से पता चल रही है. But white Beatrice is important. So Purple Hibiscus, Adichie, the Nigerian writer, ये post-colonial Nigeria में set है. Political instability. तो post-colonial Nigerian literature ये बता रहा है कि it's not that after the colonizers had gone everything was hunky-dory. There were own sets of challenges, problems जो कि people were facing. There was a lot of instability that you were able to see. तो ये सारी की सारी चीजें of course आपको बताई जाती हैं. You are able to see all of these things as well, that the instability is something that these people are actually trying to talk about. It's not all happiness after the colonizers have left altogether. ये चीज वो आपको अच्छी तरीके से बताना चाहते हैं. And central character कौन है? The daughter Kambili Achike, who's aged 15 years altogether, member of the wealthy family, dominated by this Catholic father Eugene. Eugene is zealot. वो आप देखते हो Congo के character में भी things fall apart में. Okay, violent figure altogether. He's always constantly making sure that the wife Beatrice, Kambli, the brother Jaja, they're psychologically also wounded, physically also wounded. तो ये examples आपके trauma literature के अंदर भी आते हैं, right? यही examples आपके trauma literature के अंदर भी आप देख पाते हैं. You're also able to see it in your trauma literature का category altogether. ठीक है. Beatrice even has 2 miscarriages because of this violence. Unfortunately, that is what you're able to look at. Kambli के perspective से हमें daughter के perspective, 15 साल की daughter के perspective से पूरी story पता चलती है. Disintegration of the family altogether, and we are able to see जब ये sister, जो father Beatrice, so Beatrice की एक तरह से sister-in-law जो है, right? So ये जब Ifeimua के साथ रहती हैं और उनके 3 बच्चों के साथ रहती हैं, तो उनको एक contrast पता चलता है, right? That is what they are able to see. So Catholicism आ जाता है, liberal spaces भी इनको पता चलती है. तो यूजीन की फैमिली एक है और यूजीन की सिस्टर की फैमिली एक दूसरा यूनिट बताती है, तो उनको कॉन्ट्रास्ट पता चलता है. दे आर एबल टू सी द कॉन्ट्रास्ट ऑल टुगेदर. ठीक है. तो प्लीज इसको ध्यान में रखिएगा. प्लीज कीप दिस इन माइंड ऑल टुगेदर. दिस इज समथिंग which is equally important. Okay, which of the following characters is assassinated by the regime in Chinua Achebe's Hills of Savana? Hills of Savana के अंदर who's the character, right? When we are talking about over here again, Hills of Savana, another important work of Chinua Achebe. क्लासरूम स्टूडेंट्स आप लोग इसको पोस्ट कॉलोनियल लिटरेचर के नोट्स के अंदर भी इन क्वेश्चंस को प्लीज ऐड कर लीजिएगा. हिल्स ऑफ सवाना आप क्या देख पा रहे हो? अगेन नाइजीरियन राइटर चिनुआ अचेबे इज कमिंग. ये आपका कंगन में एक तरह से बेस्ड है, व्हिच इज एन इमेजिनरी प्लेस ऑल टुगेदर. नाउ हियर व्हाट इज द राइट आंसर? व्हाट इज द राइट आंसर? इज assassinated. Ekim is assassinated. Ekim is assassinated. Ekim is assassinated. Hills of Savana, 1987, Nigerian writer. It is taking place in this imaginary West African country called Kangan, where there is Sandhurst trained officer identified only as Sam. Mam, right, known as His Excellency. He's taken over the power after a military coup. तो ये तो political instability सारे के सारे writers बता रहे हैं, lack of any cohesive power coming, ये सब बता रहे हैं. And this is reinforcing what the colonizers were saying, that you people are incapable of self governance. जबकि वहीं पे आप देखते हो कि seeds एक तरह से sow किए जाते हैं. तो that is another pointer that you're able to see. ओके, तीन फ्रेंड्स हैं, वो पॉलिटिकल सिचुएशन बताते हैं. क्रिस ओरिका जो गवर्नमेंट कमिश्नर है, बियाट्रिस ओकू यू नो हु इज द ऑफिशियल इन मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ फाइनेंस, एंड यू नो द गर्लफ्रेंड ऑफ क्रिस हु इज आल्सो देयर. Ekim Osodi, a newspaper editor, is very critical, is very critical of the regime altogether. बाकी भी और सारे के सारे कैरेक्टर्स हैं. सो एट हिल्स ऑफ सवाना, प्लीज रिमेंबर दैट पॉलिटिकल सिचुएशन को तीन लोगों के पर्सपेक्टिव से बताया जाता है. व्हाट इज द पॉलिटिकल सिचुएशन, उनको तीन लोगों के पर्सपेक्टिव से अच्छी तरह से डिकोड किया जा रहा है, दैट व्हाट इज हैपनिंग इन द पोस्ट कॉलोनियल नाइजीरियन रेजिम. वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. तो इनको अगर आप ये वाले क्वेश्चंस के माध्यम से भी कवर कर रहे हैं, you will be able to see that it will cover your entire knowledge. Which of the following is not a theme in Ngugi wa Thiong'o's novel Petals of Blood? Which of the following is not a theme? Which of the following is not a theme in Ngugi wa Thiong'o's Petals of Blood? Petals of Blood, again very important work आ जाता है. Ngugi wa Thiong'o का ये work है, केन्या में set है, immediately after the independence that we are able to see. They are asking you not पे focus कीजिएगा, not पे focus कीजिएगा. करप्शन डील कर रहा है, कैपिटलिज्म डील कर रहा है, इफेक्ट्स ऑफ वेस्टर्नाइजेशन इज देयर. सब्जुगेशन ऑफ केनियन वुमेन अनफॉर्चुनेटली ये नहीं डील करता है. ठीक है, ये वर्क अनफॉर्चुनेटली इसके बारे में नहीं बोलता है. वैसे भी मैंने आपको जो फाउंडेशन बैच में भी पोस्ट कॉलोनियल लिटरेचर करवाया था, आई हैड टोल्ड यू ईस्ट वेस्ट एनकाउंटर, इम्पैक्ट ऑफ मिशनरीज, राइट, ईस्ट वेस्ट एनकाउंटर. उल्टा कल भी जो क्लास हम लोग कर रहे थे इंग्लिश इन इंडिया, दिस इज व्हाट वी वर टॉकिंग अबाउट ओरिएंटलिस्ट एंड एंग्लिसिस्ट. हम लोगों ने देखा था कि कैसे कैसे एच विल्सन फॉर इंस्टेंस, या फिर आपका ऑल द अदर राइटर्स हु आर कमिंग हु आर आइदर अपोजिंग, जैसे यहाँ पर चार्ल्स ग्रांट हो गए, ट्रेवलिन हो गए, मकॉले हो गए, they were supporting, they were anglicists, they said use western knowledge in English. जबकि दूसरा कैटेगरी आपको क्या कह रहा है, दूसरा कैटेगरी कह रहा है no, oriental learning has to be encouraged. तभी आप देखते हो कि बनारस में या फिर आपका you know किस तरह से your Sanskrit colleges or you know the madrasas are basically given a lot of importance altogether to promote regional learning. तो वो चीज भी आप यहाँ पे अच्छी तरह से देख पाते हो. तो ये फोर्थ वाला इज नॉट अ थीम. तो पेटल्स ऑफ ब्लड विच इज अ नॉवल रिटन बाय गुगी वा थियोंगो, इट इज सेट इन केन्या. द स्टोरी ऑफ मुनीरा, अब्दुल्ला, वांजा, करेगा, राइट, इनकी लाइफ्स कंबाइंड है. क्यों कंबाइंड है? माओ माओ रिबेलियन की वजह से कंबाइंड है. एंड इन ऑर्डर टू एस्केप द सिटी लाइफ, यू नो, दे आर एक्चुअली गोइंग टू स्मॉल pastoral village of Almorg. They are just trying to go away from the city life altogether. ये कैरेक्टर्स माओ माओ रिबेलियन के रेपरकशंस को डील करते हैं. एक रैपिडली वेस्टर्नाइजिंग केन्या आ जाता है आपका, राइट. सो इट इज ट्राइंग टू टेल यू अबाउट अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल वर skeptical of this change. They were skeptical of this change. They were questioning to what extent free Kenya emulates or perpetuates the oppression that you were able to find. कि ये तो सेम ही चीज है, रूल चेंज हो गया है बट सिचुएशन सबके लिए सेम ही है. Challenges of capitalism, politics, effects of westernization, education, schools, कैसे ये ideological state apparatus है, ये सब petals of blood बताता है. Petals of blood. So petals, the freedom that you've got, but it's come at a very terrible cost, because you know you're not able to go back. You're not able to go back to the traditional order. You're not unfortunately able to go back to the traditional order. ये चीज आप देख पा रहे हो. So that is something that Petals of Blood actually tries to tell you. So please be mindful about this. Moving on to the 42nd question. In which of the following novels, Nadine Gordimer's novels, a liberal white South African family has to flee to the native village to their black servant, right? ये भी हम लोगों ने बहुत बार कर रखा है. This is all important. उल्टा आप एक booklet ही बना लीजिए. A lot of times you can actually make booklets also and study all the things, the content properly that we are looking looking at. Okay, यहाँ पे what is the correct answer? The correct answer over here is July's people. July's people. Remember the most banned writers, one of the most banned writers that we are able to see South African literature के अंदर Nadine Gordimer, extremely important. तो July's people जो आ रहा है, it's set in the near future altogether. Apartheid has ended via civil war, and here end of apartheid के बाद क्या prediction है? याद है foundation batch में we have decoded the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We have talked about it. It was a banned book altogether. It is set in the fictional Civil War area. The black South Africans have violently overturned the system of apartheid, because obviously ये आप देखते हो disgrace में भी JM कोडसी के कि कैसे David Lurie, now you know the power, his daughter has to actually suffer because there is a reversal after apartheid. The blacks are becoming more powerful altogether. There's violence. Yes, it follows the small liberal white South African family. They're liberal, okay, but they are forced to flee to Johannesburg, to the from Johannesburg, right, to the native village of the black servant July. Maureen tries working with women in the fields, digging the leaves and roots all together, and she goes to see July, who's working, who's working on the baki. So again, यहाँ पर Smalls की family, the Smalls की family, कैसे they have to escape from Johannesburg. They have to go to the village with their servant. It's a post-apartheid South Africa. वो चीज आपको दिखाई जा रही है. So July's People by Nadine Gordimer. अगर आपकी PhD एंट्रेंसेस में भी कोई क्वेश्चन आता है कि evaluate post-apartheid literature or tell the relevance of post-colonial writings, you can say post-colonial writings have constantly tried to decode macro events, macro जो आपके political events हो रहे हैं. तो apartheid का pre-apartheid literature भी है, post-apartheid literature भी है. Literature is trying to tell you about what is happening, right? That is something. वो questions भी जो आपके आते हैं, जैसे रोहिंटन मिस्त्री का कौन सा work is dealing with the emergency period. So literature is constantly moved hand in hand with telling you about what is happening at each juncture. That is also something that you're able to see. In J.M. Coetzee's novel Waiting for the Barbarians, what does the magistrate's recurring dream infer? What does the magistrate's recurring dream infer? Magistrate का जो recurring dream होता है, what is that inferring? What is that inferring? So Coetzee का Waiting for the Barbarians के अंदर magistrate को एक dream बार बार आता है. So the magistrate is actually getting this dream again and again. And what does that actually infer altogether? Again, very important, Waiting for Barbarians that you're able to see. अच्छा Coetzee की beauty क्या है? I as a reader also I personally love it. This is a nameless civil servant narrator. He's a civil servant, technically would have power, but nameless. Okay, so nameless. लेकिन आपको पता चल जाता है. Even if like he never tells the color of this other character. He'll never describe that this is my white character, white liberal family. नहीं. बाकी writers करेंगे. Right? So my son's story में Nadine Gordimer will tell us about Hannah's character, that Hannah is a liberal white woman because she identifies with Hannah's character, because Gordimer was also a liberal white in South Africa. लेकिन Coetzee आपको कभी Coetzee will never ever tell you. So he considers his readers to be, reader response theory में जो आप देखते हो horizons of expectations, he is expecting his reader to be a critical thinker overall. That is what you are able to see. तो ये चीज आपको थोड़ी सी याद रखनी है about Waiting for Barbarians. Okay, this is something that you will have to keep in mind. So when we are talking about Waiting for Barbarians over here, ये चीज please थोड़ा सा ध्यान में रखिएगा, that here we are able to see it is trying to tell you the dream is inferring the relationship between civilized humanity and monstrousness. Civilized humanity and monstrousness के बीच में जो relationship है, that is what you are able to actually see. So Waiting for the Barbarians, this is again J.M. Coetzee's work, right? And now the title कहाँ से लिया गया है? It's taken from the poem Waiting for the Barbarians by the Greek poet, that is Constantine Kafi. कफाफी के work से ले रखा है. Nameless civil servant is the narrator. He's serving as the magistrate to a frontier settlement owned by this nameless empire altogether. And the empire, a vague colonialist regime is there. They set itself to opposing the so-called barbarians altogether, the mysterious nomadic people who are there. And पूरी novel में magistrate has a recurring dream in which he approaches a group of children building a castle out of the snow. He gets closer to the children around the castle slowly disperse, right, while one hooded child remains at the center. That's the dream that you're able to see. And he's also able to see the barbarian girl, the hooded child sometimes takes on her form, other times taking on the form of monsters. So again, Waiting for Barbarians, बहुत ही brilliant account है, which actually tries to tell you about the stereotypes that have been created, how we are perceiving already the nomadic people in a particular way. There are terms that we are using without even knowing them. यही हम लोग कल रिमेंबर फाउंडेशन बैच में करे थे. मकौले क्या कहता है, आई डोंट हैव एनी नॉलेज ऑफ संस्कृत एंड अरेबिक, बट वट एवर आई कुड गैदर आई हैव गॉट एन एक्सपर्ट ओपिनियन टू से. Then that famous line that one entire shelf of books from Europe can actually give competition to the entire literature of the Hindi and the Arabian cultures altogether. So that is where you are able to see the arrogance and the lack of proper representation. What is the name of the lion in Bolshevika, the first important African writer to actually get the Nobel Prize play, The Lion and the Jewel? The Lion and the Jewel. So Lion and the Jewel, of course एक question आपका आता रहता है Lion and the Jewel से. ये सारे works को एक ही बार अच्छी तरह से compile कर लीजिएगा. These are all related to post-colonial writings and post-colonial literature. तो यहाँ पर what are you able to see? Who's the lion? The lion is Baroka. Jewel is Sidi. Jewel कौन है? Jewel is Sidi. Sidi is the jewel that we are talking about. So I hope that is clear to everybody, right? Okay, so please keep that in mind. That lion we are talking about is Veruca. So Lion and the Jewel, the play by the Nigerian writer Bolshevika, telling you about Baroka the lion. He's fighting, right? He fights with the modern Lakunel over the man of Sidi. Sidi is the jewel that you're able to see. That is what, but despite being a little elder, the father is really considering Baroka because of his power that he's having. So East-West encounter, यहाँ पर भी आपको पता चलता है. And please remember that the play takes over a Sunday. ये question important है, and it is divided into 3 parts, namely morning, noon and night. Morning, noon and night. 3 parts आ जाते हैं. So again, he's trying to tell you about the African culture, the arrival of westernized parts. हम लोग वही देख रहे थे कि कल भी when we were talking about English in India, writers like Raja Ram Mohan Roy writing the letter to Lord Ambrose, trying to literally see that there were of course problems. It's not that we were completely perfect. There were of course existing problems because of which it was easier for the colonizers to actually come in and take control of the Asian and African countries. और आपको याद है हम लोगों ने जो ब्रज खाचू का 3 concentric circles कल देखे थे, उसमें second circle, inner circle, outer circle में Asian and African countries ही हैं. फिर टोटल एक्सपैंडिंग सर्कल में तो फिर चाइना, रशिया ऐसी कंट्रीज आ जाती हैं. आई होप यू आर एबल टू रिमेंबर जो हम लोगों ने ब्रज खाचू का 3 सर्कल्स कल करे थे, द इनर सर्कल, द आउटर सर्कल एंड द एक्सपैंडिंग सर्कल. तो हम सब लोग आउटर सर्कल में आ रहे हैं जहाँ पर इंग्लिश इज द सेकंड लैंग्वेज ऑफ इंपॉर्टेंस, राइट? So that is what you are able to actually see, the rapid impact of modernization. Moving on to the 45th question very quickly. Which of the following plays by Bolshevika is based on the impact of ancestral spirits on the larger social and political environment of Nigeria in early post-independence times? So Bolshevika, which of the following plays by Bolshevika, it is telling you about the impact of ancestral spirits, right? So again here you see a lot of tradition of African countries that come in over here in most of the works altogether, and Dance of Forest is actually a very important work. Okay, so कौन सा play by Bolshevika? Ancestral spirits on the larger political environment. It is a dance of the forest. It is a dance of the forest that we are able to see. ये जो play है, ancestral spirits on the beliefs and activities of current living mortals. We also as a society, remember when you are talking about month of Shradh, etc. So what are those? Those are events जब आप believe कर रहे हो that your so-called ancestors really impact what happens to you. So this is another thing that you are able to see in multiple of these societies. Okay, Soinka further applies their motivations overall और पूरा का पूरा बताता है. तो एक तरह से जो यूरोपा ट्राइबल एथनिक ग्रुप्स है वो डिकोड कर रहे हैं इस पर्टिकुलर वर्क में. Ola rot means the gods are not to blame is an adaptation of which Greek tragedy? ये क्वेश्चन हम लोगों ने बहुत बार देखा हुआ है. What is the correct answer over here? यहाँ पर what becomes the right answer? Please remember this is a reworking of Oedipus Rex. ये किसका reworking है? It is a reworking of Oedipus Rex. Oedipus Rex का reworking है. The gods are not to blame. The gods are not to blame. It is a 1968 play, right? Which is which is coming, and it's also adapted into a novel in 1971 by Ola Rotmi. And ये readaptation है of Oedipus Rex. Story किसके ऊपर है? Udewala is lured into this false sense of security, right? And again यहाँ पर आपको पता चलता है that he is able to actually figure it out. Consanguinity क्या होता हो जाता है? Your blood relations basically, right? Your blood relations basically. Sorry, that is what you're able to see over here. Okay, so Rotmi's play, you are able to see it is a reworking of Oedipus Rex. Which of the following African playwright is concerned with the ritual suicide of a Yoruba king's horseman? Yoruba king's horseman. Yoruba king's horseman. Again, सारे notes please अपने post colonial literature में इसको add कर लीजिएगा. And when we are talking about Death and the King's Horseman, Death and the King's Horseman, Death and the King's Horseman by Vol Shoinka. Death and the King's Horseman. तो होता क्या था? In that Yoruba tradition, when the king would die, you would also bury the horse. You'll also kill. You would sacrifice the horse and you'll bury the horse. Why? Because the king, there was a belief that even when the king has to actually be taken from the earth to the heaven, right? That was a Yoruba myth. You will be needing the support of the horses. Otherwise, वो king कैसे जाएगा without his so-called machinery? Again, a lot of contested facts altogether, but that is what the myth is, and ये चीज आप वहाँ पे देख पाते हो. So Death and the King's Horseman, Death and the King's Horseman, ये जो play है, it is actually based on the real incident that took place in Nigeria. Right, the horseman of the Yoruba king was prevented from committing ritual suicide altogether. तो colonial authorities ने practice को रोकने की कोशिश करी. So that people thought कि why are you intervening in our day-to-day affairs? आप हमारे affairs में क्यों intervene कर रहे हैं? That was the thing. So that is what you're actually able to see over here. So please keep that in mind. Please remember that. And according to Yoruba tradition, the death of the king must be followed by, the ritual suicide of the king's horseman, or the king's dog altogether. But otherwise, कैसे वो king जाएगा? वो colonial empire वाले लोग ना, जो colonizers, they were trying to say no, this cannot be done. So Death and the King's Horseman, Volshoinka talks about it. Okay, the colonial authorities, they are like, no, this cannot. They are questioning the suicide. They're basically questioning the slaughter of the animal basically. तो वो आप देख पाते हो पूरे के पूरे. He also talks about multiple misconceptions. He tries to decode. This is where you see a lot of people doing a lot of research work on, like writers like Devdutt Patnaik. They have done a fantastic job in bringing and demystifying, right? Bringing and demystifying altogether. जैसे कितनी सारी myths हैं, a lot of myths, छोटी छोटी चीजें, जैसे रामायण के अंदर so many people have this myth that it's just that Kumkaran was sleeping. It wasn't Kumkaran only which was sleeping. According to a myth, it's also Lakshman's wife. Lakshman's wife was equally loyal as much as your Sita was. Why? Because Lakshman, when he went, she actually she undertook herself to sleeping, and she slept for all the 14 years that they were not here. She was just sleeping. लेकिन हम सिर्फ सोचते हैं कि रामायण में the only character who sleeps is actually Kumkaran only, right? So that is what you are able to see. कि a lot of these myths have been reworked, a lot of these myths have been decoded. Mythology को दोबारा से limelight में लाने के लिए correlating mythology, writers like Devdutt Patnaik in India have played a very critical role like that. ठीक है, तो that is exactly what over here the misconceptions, understanding the myth, they're like it's not as simple. There is much more to it. You need to understand that. You need to decode that. ये चीज वो आपको बताने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, right? So please remember that. 48th question. The poetry collection Down to My Last Skin, Down to My Last Skin belongs to which of the following South African poets? Down to My Last Skin किसको belong करती है? So when we are talking about, again, this is again another important work that we are able to see, and this is Krog's writing. Poetry में, African poetry में, ये please इसको add कर लीजिएगा. So and T.J. Krog is the one who's associated with it. Down to my last skin, Down to My Last Skin. This is the first collection of poetry that we are able to see. ये आपको बताता है कि किस तरह से and T.J. Krog, he's actually South Africa's greatest poets that you are able to see, right? So Krog का पूरी identity आ जाती है. Again, the so-called Krog's trying to explore that how the human character has to be nimble, agile. You have to be very resilient altogether. तो वो चीज आ जाता है. What is the previous South African President Nelson Mandela's autobiography called? We've done this multiple times. You should be able to answer this question correctly. What is the autobiography called? What is Mandela's autobiography called? He spent 27 years in the prison. What is his autobiography called? इनकी autobiography को क्या बोला जाता है? इनकी autobiography को बोला जाता है Long Walk to Freedom. And it was. What was it long? It was 27 years in jail and otherwise also a really long walk to freedom that you were able to see. Apartheid government ke under, again, that is what you're actually able to see. First part of the autobiography, Mandela describes his upbringing as a child and adolescent in South Africa. He's connected to the royal Thempu dynasty, right? As a child, he was called Rohilahala, which is translated as, pulling the branch of a tree or troublemaker, so to say. टेम्पू कॉलेज में वो बताते हैं उनकी पूरी की पूरी एजुकेशन के बारे में. सेकेंड पार्ट जो है इट इंट्रोड्यूसेस द aspects of apartheid altogether, influence of politicians like Malan who implemented the Nadir of African freedoms altogether. ठीक है. And पूरा इनका जो tenure था over 27 years का, that is also getting described. That entire tenure is also something that you're able to see. It's getting described altogether. Okay, so please remember that part also. Please keep that in mind over here. This is something which is really important for you. Okay, Country of My Skull. Country of My Skull, the South African non-fiction work was published in The Country of My Skull. The Country of My Skull. When was this published? This is the last question that we are having. This is the last question that we are having. This is the last question that we are able to see. So, Country of My Skull. The Country of My Skull. What is the correct answer over here? What is the correct answer over here? Country of My Skull. Country of My Skull. So Country of My Skull was published in 1998. 1998 में Country of My Skull आ रहा था. Again, Krog का work है. Krog is trying to tell you about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, right? So Truth and Reconciliation Commission is actually, again, when we are looking at the TRC, what is the TRC actually trying to do? The TRC is predominantly trying to ensure that you are seeking so-called apologies from the whites who had perpetuated violence altogether. तो यहाँ पर आपके टोटल 50 क्वेश्चंस हम लोगों ने लाइक क्यूमुलेटिव कर लिए हैं. लाइक आई सेड, क्वेश्चन नंबर 26 to 37 हम फाउंडेशन बैच में करेंगे. So that is something that we'll be covering. Please make exhaustive notes because all of these questions were related to post-colonial literature. मैं टेलीग्राम पे आपको थोड़ा सा और रीडिंग मटेरियल दूंगी आज की क्लास को साथ में सप्लीमेंट करने के लिए on post-colonialism. So make sure that you read that, you go over it, you try to mull over it, you try to decode that properly. Fine. In case if there are any other questions, please feel free to let me know on neerja.raheja.faculty@testbook.com or otherwise put it in the comment section and let me know if there are any other concerns. Fine. I'll catch up with all of you in the next session. Take good care of yourselves. और Friday तक हम लोग आपको मास्टर क्लास का schedule भी बता देंगे जो आपकी next week से start होंगी, so that you can even practice it properly. Fine. Thanks everyone for joining. Take good care of yourselves. Thank you so much.